Thank you. How dangerous is it? That's the question we asked about 10 years ago. I'm a doctor, an endocrinologist, so I'd like to know how harmful it is before you can reduce the harm. And that's the reason why we started our anabolic steroids clinic, our patient clinic 10 years ago in a hospital in Haarlem, which is very near Amsterdam. As you know, the Netherlands is a very small country, so anyone in the Netherlands can reach our hospital with a 2-hour car drive. And over the past 10 years, we saw about 330 abuses of anabolic steroids, or past abuses of anabolic steroids, with health issues that were thought to be associated with anabolic steroid abuse. So what do? I'd like to make that very clear, is that we consult past abusers or abusers of anabolic steroids with health issues. They need to have a health problem before they can visit our clinic, and they are sent to us by other doctors, such as the general practitioner or sport physicians, and it's all reimbursed by Dutch healthcare insurance. And the main focus, of course, is harm reduction. We did research, and I'm going to show you the results of that. We'd like to educate other healthcare workers with our experiences, but what we don't do is that we do not prescribe anabolic steroids for cosmetic or athletic purposes, and we do not do routine health checks in current users without health problems. So the main reasons to visit the clinic: I'm an endocrinologist, so it's mostly related to hormone disruption. So loss of libido, erectile dysfunction, suspected other signs and symptoms that were reminiscent of hypogonadism, gynecomastia, fertility issues, health concerns in general, because most of them know that using anabolic steroids may be a problem, and so they were concerned about their health, and that's the reason why they visited us. Mood disorders, especially depression and anxiety disorders, we saw a lot. Although we are not psychologists or psychiatrists. Some of them wanted our help to stop anabolic steroids, and once in a while we found abnormal blood tests, or the GP found abnormal blood tests, and they wanted our help to know whether it was related to the anabolic steroid abuse. The problem with the population from the steroid clinic was that they were all referred because of health issues, so it was a selected population, and we couldn't be sure whether this really reflected the steroid using population in the Netherlands. And that's the reason why about 4 years ago we started what we now call the Haarlem study, which is a prospective observational cohort study in 100 male users of anabolic steroids. So these were all men over 18, or over 17 actually, 18 or older, who wanted to start a cycle of anabolic steroids. They had to buy the steroids themselves, they had to make their own cycle, and the only thing we asked, if they wanted to start, visit us, and we did some checks within 2 weeks before the start of the cycle. We repeated these checks at the end, in the last week of the cycle, then 3 months after the cycle, and then 1 year after inclusion, so that is 100 patient years of anabolic steroid abuse. They only got the results of all the tests after they stopped the cycle, so the tests would not interfere with their using the cycle, and obviously if the results appear to be dangerous, we notified the user, of course, but that was not necessary in this study. So, what are we talking about? The users, there were some slides before by the previous speakers, and it's very similar in the Netherlands. Most of them are male, most of them are fairly young. The mean age was 31. On the right you see the population from the Haarlem study, and it's very similar to those we saw on the anabolics clinic. So these are not the same, it's a different population. Most started using in their early 20s, and they're fairly normal in a lot of ways, and the only thing they have in common is that they're all lifting weights, mostly bodybuilding, and only a minority is competitive. And what we also saw that we asked them for drug use and recreational drug use in the past 3 months, and it appeared that 56% admitted to have been using recreational drugs over the past 3 months, mostly ecstasy or cannabis, cocaine and GHB. So yes, the problem is then what makes it really difficult? Well, first of all, it's never one cycle of anabolic steroids. Most are using more than one cycle. They keep on using it. There are a lot of different drugs in one cycle, and the dose is extremely high. I will show you results later. You can say that the sky is the limit, and the quality of illegal anabolic steroids is poor, which is not a surprise to you, I assume. And anabolic steroids have inherent side effects. There is no one person who is using anabolic steroids who does not experience at least one side effect. We measured body weight in the Haarlem study. On the left, you see the body weight at baseline. The second bar is the body weight at the end of the cycle, and the third bar is the body weight 3 months after stopping anabolic steroids. And the last, the most on the right, is at 1 year after inclusion. And you see that during the cycle of anabolic steroids, body weight increases by about 5 kilograms. We didn't measure muscle or fat tissue, body composition. And 3 months after stopping anabolic steroids, there was only a weight gain compared to baseline of 1.6 kilograms. And after 1 year of starting the anabolic steroid cycle, it was less than a kilo. So this means that if you want to maintain increasing your body weight, you have to start using again. And if you look at the self-reported side effects by the users of anabolic steroids, the first 4 are all beneficial effects. That's what they report themselves. 100% notices increased strength, more than 90% increased muscle mass, increased libido, and a decrease in fat mass. So maybe one of the problems is that these substances really work. I'll come back to the side effects later. So that means that that might be a very powerful stimulus to start using again. 77% of the Haarlem study participants had used anabolic steroids before, with a mean of 4 cycles. Of the Haarlem study population, 10% started a new cycle within the 12 months of follow-up, so they started the second cycle, and 5% of them actually never stopped during this 12 months, so they used continuously. And there appeared to be a positive association between previous use and the cycle length, cycle dose, and the number of compounds in one cycle. So you see that there is, once they start again, they take higher doses, longer cycles, and more drugs. So as I said about the dose, the sky is the limit, and it really is. The cycle length, the mean cycle length is 13 months, but as I said, some of them are cycling for 1 year. The number of different drugs in one cycle is 4, but some of them take up to 11 different drugs in one cycle. And you must realize that I'm an endocrinologist. When I have a patient who is low on testosterone because of other reasons, we can treat them with testosterone, and a normal weekly dose of testosterone is somewhere in the range of 75 milligrams per week. And as you can see, the mean dose by anabolic steroid abusers is 900 milligrams per week, so that's more than 10 times a normal dose. But that's only the mean dose, so 50% of them is using even more, up to more than 3 grams of anabolic steroids per week. And the cumulative dose in one cycle can be up to 70 grams of anabolic steroids, which is an extremely high dose. And it's not really expensive. The mean cost of anabolic steroid cycle is 30 euros per week. So it's really cheap, actually, and it's very accessible for most of them. So this is not really surprising. When you look at what they're using, it's mostly testosterone, decadirabulin, trenbolone, stanozolol, the usual stuff. And again, this is not really very different between the Haarlem study population and the population in our anabolic steroid clinic. And I think it's very similar among other countries as well. The problem maybe is that they are also using a lot of other drugs, such as growth hormone. 21% in the Haarlem studies using growth hormone above on using anabolic steroids, but also thyroid hormone, insulin, tamoxifen, HCG, clomiphene, and a lot of different drugs to combat side effects or to prevent side effects. So where did they get their anabolic steroids? Mostly of course, via illegal ways, mostly via dealers, friends and coaches, and only a minority ordered them via internet. And we tried to find out where these anabolic steroids came from, and most of them, 60%, were from underground labs, mostly in the Netherlands or some in the countries around the Netherlands, and 40% of them came from sort of pharmaceutical companies from Asia and Eastern Europe. And the quality, we tested the quality of the anabolic steroids abused in the Haarlem study, and they were really poor in the sense that 6% did not even contain any anabolic steroid, and only in 30% there was the anabolic steroid present that was indicated on the label. So in most cases it's really anyone's guess what you are injecting. So back to the side effects again. As I said, the first 4 are beneficial effects, and then you see the side effects that most abusers know that they have the possibility of having this side effect, as testicular atrophy, fluid retention, acne, agitation, snoring, etc. So these are most attentions, and by most abusers as seen as relatively mild. When you look at gonadal function, you see, and that's what they know, that mean testicular volume is going down significantly, but 3 months after stopping anabolic steroids, you see that there is a large increase in testicular volume again, and 1 year after inclusion, testicular volume has normalized, at least back to baseline. When you look at testosterone levels, again, 3 months after stopping anabolic steroids, testosterone levels have returned in most cases back to normal, and 1 year after starting anabolic steroids, there is no significant difference between baseline. SABG, I won't go into that, but it's a very sensitive marker of anabolic steroid abuse because sex hormone binding globulin, SABG, is very low in users. When you look at pituitary hormones, LH and FSH, these need to stimulate the testes to produce testosterone, and these are suppressed by using anabolic steroids, which is not a surprise. But what surprised me is that 3 months after anabolic steroids, you see that at least LH is back to baseline again. And for FSH, it is back to baseline again, at least within 1 year after starting anabolic steroids. Sperm concentration goes down, of course, significantly in practically all users while using anabolic steroids, but there is, most of them, a return to baseline after 3 months, and 1 year after stopping anabolic steroids, it is back to normal. So liver damage, liver enzymes go up in most users, although not to a level that is really worrying, and again, it's back to baseline now 3 months after stopping. And bilirubin and GT, well, they hardly, these are liver parameters as well, hardly change. Haemoglobin goes up, it's not a surprise again, but again, it's back to baseline after 3 months, and in most of them, it's not really a dangerous high level. Platelets go up as well, and I'm not sure what that means, but again, it's back to baseline after 3 months of stopping. Cholesterol, HDL cholesterol, the so-called good cholesterol, is suppressed dramatically by using steroids, and it's not returned to baseline after 3 months of stopping. And bad cholesterol, LDL-C, is going up significantly, but, well, not to a large extent. Blood pressure goes up slightly, a few millimeters mercury, and again, normalization after 3 months. And the prostate level, PSH, it goes up slightly, but it's all within the normal range. These are all young men, so they won't have prostate problems. Gynecomastia, which is a side effect of using steroids. As you can see, there is some gynecomastia at baseline in 7%. These were past users. It goes up to almost 20%, mostly mild, grade 1, but in some slightly more moderate. And again, after 3 months, you see that there is a decline in gynecomastia incidence. For acne, it's a similar pattern, although you can see that it is after 3 months, there's still significantly more acne in the users. We did some questionnaires about well-being, quality of life and aggression, and we did not see significant changes. Depression scores actually improved during the cycle and also after the cycle. And 22% of the Haarlem study population had signs of moderate to severe body dysmorphic disorder, so that's a really large proportion. There were some severe adverse events, although it's very difficult to know whether this is really associated with the use of anabolic steroids. One had heart failure, one had an inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease, which had a flare during the use of anabolic steroids. One had acute pancreatitis, and it was his fourth bout of pancreatitis, and 3 times he had it while using anabolic steroids, so there seems to be association. And one was treated because of suicidal thoughts, but he also had a relationship breakup, so that may also be one of the problems. So we did additional studies, cardiac ultrasounds. I can't show you the data yet, coagulation parameters. We are still doing quantitative analysis of the anabolic steroid samples used in the Haarlem study, and we will have 2-year follow-up of this cohort completed next year. So what makes it dangerous? First of all, the cumulative dose is extremely high. They usually use a lot of different drugs, including recreational drugs. The quality is poor, as we've showed again. They all have side effects, but these mostly, for the users, outweigh the beneficial effects. Most effects are transient, as we see, also the biochemical effects. Then again, anabolic steroids is associated with adverse metabolic profile, increased platelet count, increased hemoglobin, low HDL cholesterol, and increased blood pressure. And the long-term effects are still largely unknown, especially in the long-term users. Serious side effects do occur, but they appear to be idiosyncratic. That means that it is almost impossible to predict who is going to have a serious side effect. Okay, thank you very much for your attention.